Jon Sicotte, executive editor of Brewer and Cider Business. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer and Cider Business Podcast. It's Cider Business today, and we are sponsored, of course, by Keg Logistics. You can go to keglogistics.com for more details. Well, today on the Cider Business Podcast, we're heading to upstate New York to talk about what it really takes to turn a legacy apple orchard into a modern beverage platform. My guest is Eddie Brennan of Beak Skiff Orchards, and 1911 established, a fifth-generation leader who's helped take a 115-year-old family farm and brought it for back-to-back crop disasters into making it a diversified operation, producing hard cider, spirits, THC beverages, cider, cold brew, and contact beverages for major retailers. In this edition, Eddie and I dig into the decisions behind how the 1911 cider brand saved the farm when apple revenue collapsed, why they doubled down on vertical integration, growing apples, pressing juice, and controlling production from end to end. Also, the business logistics of adding cannabis, concerts, and private label manufacturing to their 1,000-acre campus, and how brands like Cider Donut and Honeycrisp have helped drive 18 million units and 30-state distribution, even as parts of the alcohol category have flattened. Well, let's get into the discussion with Eddie Brennan of 1911 Established here on the Cider Business Podcast. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. And we are joined with Eddie Brennan of 1911, Beak Skiff, and many other things that we are going to be talking about here on the Brewer and Cider Business Podcast. Eddie, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. We're coming from beautiful upstate New York.
Yeah, outside of Syracuse, right? Like, I've never been the south side of Syracuse, but I've definitely driven through the area, the Finger Lakes region, and always appreciate making a stop there and getting a chance to cider and wine, and of course beer in the New York area is always a great thing. I mean, you guys have a good area for that for sure.
Yeah, we're right in a small town called Lafayette, New York. We're kind of like the easternmost edge of the Finger Lakes region. So great apple growing climate, and yeah, that's what we focus on here. All things apples.
And Beak Skiff is the oldest brand entity that you guys are obviously a part of for, with 1911 being the name of the cider brand, and that, how long it's Beak Skiff has been around. You've been with the company now 10 years. Kind of tell me about your transformation. You kind of moved there, a while back to kind of help with the apple farm, and,
Right.
What kind of business changes have you seen, especially in these last 10 years?
Well, yeah, I moved back here a little over 10 years ago. Beak Skiff is a 115-year-old family business. So I represent part of the fifth generation. So if you think about business that's been around for 115 years, all the changes that have gone on from generation to generation. But I'm probably the last person in my family that they thought would be involved in this business. My grandfather, Marshall Skiff, who we called kind of outdoor guy, ran the farm here for decades. Had 5 daughters, and a lot of the daughters' husbands got involved in the business. My dad was not one of those originally, and so my dad's job moved us all over the country. We lived in Hawaii and Connecticut and Georgia and California, and then I ended up going to Colgate University just down the road here, which was my first. I'd been around the farm in the summertime doing all kinds of tough manual labor, but after Colgate, I went down to New York City and worked for a company called Bloomingdale's. I really wanted to be involved in retail and merchandising. That's what my dad was in, and my grandfather was in. So the path led me back here. My dad finally got involved in the business, made an investment in the business, and then for about a year, every weekend he would call me and try to convince me to come back to upstate New York and help jump into the family business.
When you got there, is there something about we need to be more than an apple farm? I mean, obviously the hard cider had already been going, but now you're looking at many different brands and many different ways that you guys are operating the business. Was it just something of I want to do this because, or I feel that this is the right path going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it was 100% out of necessity. So 1911, the hard cider brand, saved the family farm. So without 1911, Beak and Skiff doesn't exist today, and that's really important. We saw the writing on the wall. By the time I had arrived, 2013, 2014, the farm had fallen on some hard times. So we had 2 consecutive back-to-back really challenging weather seasons here. And everyone in the apple business knows how critical the spring time period is, right before the bees arrive, when all the apple trees are in blossom. And we had back-to-back years with really tough frost events. So if you think in March, we had sustained temperatures over 80 degrees for multiple weeks. And by the time we hit April, we saw some nights in the 20s and at some point in the teens. So we had lost over 80% of the crop 2 consecutive years, which is really a death knell for a business like ours, that over 80% of the revenue was happening in a 6 to 8 week time period. We weren't very diversified. So, but what I saw was there was this incredible opportunity. We had hundreds of thousands of people that would come to our campus here in Lafayette, which is a small town, during whenever there was apples on the trees, anything picking related, they were here. So there was this amazing energy behind the brand. We just had to find a way to harness it. And hard cider really gave us that opportunity to tell our brand story. And naming our hard cider brand 1911 was very intentional, because it really conveyed the history of the brand. We'd been around for over 100 years at that time. And so there's an inherent quality and value that was conveyed with that. And we debated for a long time, do we call it Beak and Skiff? But ultimately, Beak and Skiff was our more family destination. And 1911 was what would ultimately put Beak and Skiff on the map outside of the Syracuse region.
And obviously now, like I said, I have all these tabs open so that I'm looking at all the different companies and naming things. So we're talking an apple farm, hard cider, spirits, cannabis. There's also private label manufacturing that you guys are doing. You have a live entertainment venue. So like you said, diversification is really important there. Was there anything that wasn't worth pursuing, or something that you did that has kind of fallen by the wayside? And, how do you determine an opportunity, to go forward with a business thought process?
Well, everything typically starts with the land here. So whether it be cannabis, apples, concerts, everything starts with we have a 1,000-acre campus here, and how do we preserve that? How do we keep that land in our family long term? And unfortunately, growing apples was not going to provide that long term. We had to find ways to continue to grow apples, but find ways to harness that in the future. So we always anything we're doing really looks at that core messaging in our head, like, is this going to create revenue opportunities for the long term of the business? So, but that being said, starts in the orchard, and then we work our way up, and that vertical integration is really critical, because one of the mistakes we made was we would pick the apples and then we would send them to packing houses, and so we weren't extracting the value from those apples, moving it up the supply chain and creating brands around those. But even when we talk about getting into cannabis, that alone had to help sustain the apple orchard. So we're always very strategic in how we're looking at the land here and finding ways to preserve it, because the legacy of our business is very important to us. So we're looking to try to pass this on to a 6th generation, and that we have that why that we operate with every day.
And of course, every time you're adding something, there's a complexity to it. It's not always going to be, the same exact equipment, the same exact process. How have you guys worked your way towards this? And what kind of, leadership are you bringing in, people with experience? How important is it when you're building a new part of the business over these last few years to make sure that you're doing it right the first time?
Yeah, well, I've made every mistake you can possibly make in the manufacturing business, specifically related to anything bottles or cans. We've made mistakes. When I started here, we were making hard cider in a small garage here. It was about 1,000 square feet. We were making cider batches in 200-gallon poly tanks, and then we were fermenting, crash cooling them, and then ultimately bottling into 750 ml bottles. And we went from that to a 30,000 square foot production facility. So it was a steep ramp for us. And, a lot of the expertise here was around, between my dad and myself, was around retail and merchandising and telling stories. So, we made challenges, but we partnered with a lot of experts who gave us a lot of great advice. And then we went out and found not only experts in the category, but people that were really passionate about joining our team and kind of growing with us. And we knew there was a vision here that we believed was big. And if you go back 10 to even 15 years in New York State and just look at cider broadly, the gluten-free movement was taking off. Breweries were getting into cider. There was so much excitement around the category because people saw in Europe, cider as a percent of the beer category was over 10%. And there was this thought that, hey, if we could do that here, what the value of that category could be. But we made mistakes, but we really believed that we had something special. And when we get to we're about to approach the fall season here, there's so much energy and excitement that would come onto our campus around those brands. And there was a hunger to take that. When we open, it's only 6 weeks where people are here and picking apples. We wanted something that we could take to grocery stores that they could find not only in New York State, but if they live in North Carolina or Florida, that they could experience it there as well. So it was this steep ramp. And when I look back on it, so many, when you're going through those challenges in the moment, running out of products or dealing with manufacturing challenges, it can be really stressful. But having that passion and vision and really belief that we were doing something amazing really helps sustain us and keep us going forward.
Yeah, and I was at CiderCon in Providence, and Bart Watson from the BA was there, and talking to leadership there at the same time. There is a look at numbers. The hard numbers shows that cider actually is doing much better when it comes to other categories. So, and it's kind of the same for you. I know when I got the information from you guys, that it says 18 million, including contract production, 60% of growth over 3 years, and distribution in 30 states. What do you think 1911 is doing differently that's allowed you guys to grow while maybe the overall category might not be growing that fast or a little more stagnant?
Yeah, I think first it's really encouraging to see hard cider continuing to grow. I think any growth right now in the alcohol category is really exciting, and working with our distributors across the country, cider is becoming more and more important in their overall books. So if they have a couple hundred brands and they're looking at the overall performance, there's a lot of red in those numbers, and cider is growing. And so I think that people across the country, there's an inherent belief, I think, that cider as can be better for you. I think they understand where the ingredients come from. But when I look at 1911 specifically, we started with the Syracuse community and then we built out from there. But the original feel of our brand was very old. Think of old red barns, at the apple picking experience. That did okay, and we were in 750 ml bottles, and we transitioned to glass. But when we saw our brand really took off, it's when we transitioned into cans and then started taking a page from what was happening in the non-alcoholic category, what we saw in craft beer, just big, bold flavors, and not being so traditional in we do stuff with heirloom apples, but we saw what was resonating was when we did a cider donut. So 1911 created the first cider donut, hard cider, which most cider brands today, we'll be releasing in the next few weeks their version of the cider donut. But that was born here in Lafayette, New York, because we had seen 200,000 people show up to our farm every year and eat thousands and thousands of these cider donuts. And so we felt that was a quintessential fall story that we could tell people. And a traditional cider maker enthusiast might shy away from doing that. Would be looked at, hey, that's not pure, or that's a deviation from what the customers want. But what we saw was not only did they want it, but they were asking us for these fun flavors. So our best-selling cider in the fall season is this cider donut. And then the other thing we looked at was we have a large pressing facility here. We harvest our own apples, so our vertical supply chain became very important. And one of the ciders we make is called Honeycrisp, and anyone who buys apples in grocery stores know the Honeycrisp apple is the king in the apple business. And anything we put, we joke here, anything we put the name Honeycrisp on does well, whether it's pies, caramel apples, donuts. It does extremely well. Even in our cannabis business, we have a Honeycrisp THC infused cider that does well. And we have 20 acres dedicated here at Beak Skiff that we harvest just for this specific cider. And so being able to control that supply chain, press the apples, it's 100% Honeycrisp apples. That was something that the customers really latched onto and understood. So what's and then looking at our designs, like big, bold designs, fun logos, fun colors, not taking ourselves too seriously and being able to lean into some fun industry trends, but then also, have something behind the brand. I think today, in the CPG space, alcohol space, wherever you look, there's so many labels out there, and there's not a lot of storytelling behind the brands. I think customers today really want stories, and they want when they pull something off the shelf and they look at it and they try it, and then they go to the website and realize, oh, this is a physical place I can go visit. I think when customers make that connection and they actually visit our campus here and understand that there's a bigger story behind the brand, and we do grow apples, we do press them here, you can come experience the brand. That's important. So one of the key phrases we use here at Beak Skiff that just kind of connects the message for the customers: we grow apples. That's at its core what we do. That's something that not a lot of hard cider brands, even in today's world, can say. Yeah. Growing apples is really hard. It's one of the hardest crops to grow, maintain, obviously harvest. There's not a lot of mechanism in it. It's a very physical labor, and it's something we're very proud of, that we continue that legacy here.
As you were talking, I was actually scrolling through the website, the 1911 website, to see all the brands that you guys do have, and like you said, there's flavors out there that I think sometimes some maybe more traditional orchard based will shy away from. But right, like you said, you're finding a customer base. Sometimes it's experimentation as well. I mean, are there things that are going really well that you didn't think would, or maybe something that you thought would really be good, and just flavor wise it just didn't connect? Yeah,
I think Jan Fay, who's our head cider maker here, who I would put up against anyone in the cider world, he's an incredible cider maker. He's been so open-minded to doing new things, which I think some people get very set in their lane of this is what I specialize in, and that's been fun. So one cider we make here is called Lafayette, and that is more of a traditional cider. So our orchard manager, Pete Fleckenstein, who's also a 5th generation family member, about 8 years ago, we planted a 5-acre block of these heirloom apple varieties. So it was Dabinett, Kingston Black, and anybody in the apple world knows those are traditional heirloom varieties. He always jokes they're really tough varieties to grow. They don't bloom at the right time. We deal with biennial bearing, so we'll have a great crop one year, next year not so much. But Jan, our cider maker, really did want to tell that true orchard story. So Lafayette's a cider that's going to be, it's a $14 or $15.99 4-pack, but it's made using traditional heirloom apples. And it's not a huge seller for us, but it helps tell that story. But we can go from the Lafayette cider to I think last year we did a candy corn hard cider, which is in your face, fun, Halloween, not taking ourselves too seriously. It's very marshmallow forward and vanilla. And he's totally open to making that cider as well. And the customers go crazy for it because it's something unique you're not going to find anywhere else. So we can take people through the whole spectrum. We have a sour program here. We do we were one of the first cideries to do barrel aging, because we do have a distillery here where we make bourbon. Just the collaboration between our distiller and our cider maker of doing a maple bourbon hard cider. So we were able to introduce these fun flavors to the customers, and a lot of times they're just in and out flavors. The core ciders for us are that 1911 original, Honeycrisp, black cherry. Those are the big flavors people know us for. But we lean into the fun flavors every year, and that's been something fun. And I think that keeps the excitement going around here, and it's something the customers have known us for. And I think we've seen our competition latch on and try some of these flavors, which is fine with us. If it works and customers want it, go for it. Let's all try it.
Sure. And we'll kind of break down, like, we've talked about, there's many multiple facets of the business. Do you see yourself, Beak Skiff, primarily as an egg company, a beverage company, an entertainment company? We haven't, you got the live venue, a consumer brand. I mean, like, because it's important sometimes. Or do you see your guys as something else or a little bit of everything? This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Yeah, we're a little bit of everything. I think at our core, we're a family farm that out of necessity has had to go out and reinvent ourselves. And we're proud of that fact. We know that if we had stayed back and not made these changes, the business wouldn't exist today. Yeah. And so we look at ourselves as we're very in tune with what our customer wants, and we listen to our customer intently. So we get lots of messages from our customer, whether it's a new flavor they want or a new artist they want to see. You mentioned the concert business, and we're kind of wrapping up our summer concert series. Here we had Cole Swindell last week and Lake Street Dive. We have so many of these amazing artists who come to our Apple Hill campus. It's really a beautiful campus. It's the highest point in Onondaga County, which is where Syracuse is. It looks out over the city of Syracuse, and you're surrounded by apple trees. And it really is an ideal place to see a show. But one of our challenges was it's really hard to get people to show up to an apple orchard when there's no apples on the trees. So we always kind of talked about what are things we can do here. We've got the land, and music was one of the first things that I brought to the business, and that's grown and taken on a life of its own because artists and managers, they talk to each other, and they've really hyped up the venue. And when artists come here, it feels like an off day. They're not showing up to an arena or an amphitheater, a big concrete space. It's a beautiful apple orchard. And so that's one of those examples. But we really do consider ourselves a family farm. We're surrounded by so much nature here, and anything outside of farming has been done to try to preserve the space here. Even, we do co-manufacturing. We make cider for multiple other brands nationally, and we work with many retail chains on private label programs. And that's really to be able to continue to reinvest in our manufacturing and allow us to have the best equipment, because quality and consistency at times is something that's lacking in the industry, and we really want to set that standard and make sure we're making the best products. But we're a family farm that has ultimately become a beverage company. Today that's what we really are. We operate 4 distinct beverage manufacturing facilities. We have a cannabis facility, a distillery, a fresh cider plant where we do cold brew coffee, and then our hard cider facility. So there's a lot going on a daily basis here. But yeah, beverage experts. We have a lot of fun doing it though.
Yeah, you mentioned the contracting part, and when did you realize that private labels were something that would be an important part of the business? Because it, at least what I've read, it was about 40% of what your revenue is now, and it's an important aspect. So, like, when did you recognize that? And how long has it been a part of it?
Yeah, well, that also came a bit out of necessity. We built this. We went from a garage to all of a sudden we were in this 30,000 square foot facility, and so we had all this space and we had all this equipment, and there was a lot of hard cider brands 10 years ago looking for places they could make the cider. And we had the apples, we had the fresh cider, we had the expertise. So it was a match that really made sense. And the other thing was we had a great relationship with Wegmans grocery chain, because we had made fresh cider for them. We had sold apples to them back when my grandfather was running the business. And they would come to us with ideas, and they're also a great family business, a little bit bigger than ours. They're up and down the East Coast, but our business has really grown with them. And over the years, they've come to us with obviously fresh cider, but they came to us about cold brew coffee 6 years ago. They were looking to get into the category, and it just so happened that it really worked with our manufacturing setup. Like, it was a perfect scenario, but it was a big risk for us. Working with them, having the equipment built and then actually making the product. So co-manufacturing is really in our DNA. Most of the partners we work with, we say we're going to invest alongside you. It's not a scenario where we're just looking to grow 1911 and kick you out. It's been a part of our business model from the beginning, and it's been great to see some of the relationships and some of the brands that grow for us. But today we make coffee and fresh cider for some of the biggest grocery chains on the East Coast, and that is something we're also really proud of.
Now, when you guys saw cannabis was going to be legalized, you jumped into it with the Heirloom brand. What do you see in cannabis that made you believe it was worth the risk, and how is it now? Because things are so all over. I know Ohio's having its own issues. I'm sure you guys see stuff all the time. How much of a risk play is it to be in THC right now?
Yeah, so cannabis is really, really interesting. We got into it in over 6 years ago through New York State had this pilot program that it was a research pilot program that if you partnered with them and you showed that you could do research on their behalf, they'd give you a license. At the time it was a hemp license. So we got in that and we had said, okay, we'll grow a hemp crop here. We'll extract the CBD, and then we were going to infused a CBD beverage that we ultimately took to the market and commercialized. That was our introduction. But then as we got into it, we saw obviously a much bigger opportunity. And if we just look at cannabis as purely a crop, it was another crop we could grow on our farm that we could vertically integrate all the way up to extracting and manufacturing. So it was very definitely compelling for us. And we had learned so much about beverage manufacturing and just manufacturing in general that if we could get the license and create the brand, we could pour a lot into this product. And so when New York State legalized over 4 years ago, we were in a great situation because if you had participated in this research pilot program, then we were able to qualify for a license. And so we were one of the first licenses. We had made a huge bet. So we bet over $5 million on a manufacturing facility that was not only beverage focused, it had space to make edibles and vapes and all of that. But we had 4 years before that of growing hemp on our farm and understanding how the crop grew. And along the way, so many challenges, legal challenges that we faced. We did face some pushback from our customers, which is always interesting. Legacy customers of Beak Skiff who, called me a drug dealer at the time or didn't really understand why a family farm would expose themselves or get into this business, which was always interesting to me because we had a distillery where we make 120 proof bourbon every day, and there was no moral issues with that. But all of a sudden, cannabis was an issue. Sure. So there were challenges. But the name Heirloom for us was very intentional because if you look at heirloom apple trees, they're passed down from generation to generation. They're hard apple trees to grow. They're not the best apples to eat. They're really bitter, but they make really good hard cider. So Heirloom, we kind of changed the spelling on it. And it's really what the fifth generation brought to the family business. So if 1911 saved the family farm, Heirloom's going to keep it going in the future. And today, if you look at Heirloom, it's actually the largest cannabis brand in New York State. So it's solidly the number one brand in one of the largest cannabis markets in the world. And certainly the most important market to be in the world if you're in cannabis. So it's something we're very, very proud of, but we've had to create a separate company, but it sits right in the middle of our orchard, and it is every day giving us new challenges, but new excitement. But we built the largest legal cannabis beverage facility on the East Coast at the time when this was constructed. But every mistake we made building the 1911 facility, we learned from and learned from it, and then really executed when we built this facility.
Yeah, I'm looking kind of through the website right now. You have tinctures and pre-rolls, beverages, gummies, vapes, and so much more. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's many ways that you can get into that. It's just another category. I think, like you said, people probably want to demonize it, but there's a consumer base for it. There's a consumer base you can build, and I'm sure you guys are seeing that as well because of the changes in laws and legislations. People all of a sudden realize, oh, this is something that is just as enjoyable as any of the other things that you guys have been producing.
Yeah, and we had seen some of the data that alcohol sales were at risk because people were transitioning to cannabis. And today we see that more than ever, that when people are drinking, it's more intentional. They're drinking less, or they're zebra striping. They're like having an alcoholic beverage, a non-alcoholic beverage, and then going back to alcohol, or they're not drinking at all and replacing it with cannabis. And there's an occasion for everything. And across our beverage companies, we're trying to meet people in those occasions, whether it's you're just sitting on the couch with friends, or you're going to a birthday party, and whatever that is, we want to meet you there. So we don't really see them as competing entities. We see them as working together to keep the family farm going. But the stigma around cannabis is waning, and the confusion with the customers continues to grow. So obviously we're in the recreational legalized business in New York State and dispensaries, but then there's the whole hemp D9 conversation. And you mentioned Ohio, which is confusing, but every state has their own confusing laws. And now there's a challenge in November and December where it might go away. Yeah. So I think the consumer just wants safe cannabis that they can access conveniently. And that's ultimately what I hope is out there. But everyone's saying, people are drinking less and alcohol's going away. Like, I don't buy that. I think people are just changing their habits and looking for different ways to consume.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the number one thing you always hear, Gen Z isn't drinking as much. And it was funny. I just recorded a podcast yesterday and we were talking about this, and I said this. So people that might be listening to every single episode have already heard this, but they keep forgetting that half of Gen Z isn't even of legal purchasing age yet.
Right.
So when they're asking, are you consuming, edibles, or are you buying THC drinks, or are you buying cider? Are you buying beer? Are you buying wine? Are you buying spirits? If you ask someone under the 21, of course they're going to say no, because they don't want to get in trouble.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
a good
it's going
point.
to have that down. So I think we see in maybe the next 5 to 7 years, when that lower half of Gen Z becomes 18 to 21, I guess it's 21 for most of it now. When they're in that 21 to 28-year-old area, I think those numbers are gonna move, and we'll
right.
see. Oh, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. But they're looking for, at times they're looking for better. So maybe they're drinking less, but they're looking for better ingredients or higher quality. So, but I've never been more optimistic about hard cider right now. I think people are going to continue to consume it. We have seen a lot of consolidation in the category. So, there's less breweries getting into it. The smaller brands, I think, are struggling to some degree, and you see a more consolidation in that those top 10 brands. So it'll be interesting what the next few years bring. But access to great cider has been more readily accessible to everyone, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. How do you manage all of this? Because you're constantly having to think about, it's not just one business, one brand, it's multiple things. Like, how do you divide your time? How do you have, chain of management so that, things aren't slipping through the cracks and making sure things are being a positive forward?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think one of the things I've done over the years, I've hired really great people who are way smarter than me. So I was a BEC student. I got into Colgate University because I was good at lacrosse. And so I've always tried to surround myself with not only really smart people, but people that are really passionate. And so we have a great young management team here who's really excited about everything we're doing. So I always say I can teach you lots about the business. I can't teach you to be passionate about it, and I can't teach excitement. I can show you what it looks like. And today we're actually doing a ribbon cutting. We're opening a new adventure park at our Apple Hill campus, which we're really excited about. And, in January, when we were looking at it, it was a 6-acre piece of property that just had a few apple trees on it. And today it's this vision that we've all brought to life. And that's exciting to work together on how do we create experiences that people can see. And so, yeah, day to day, there's lots, I could be working in cannabis, or I could be working at a concert. It really keeps you on your toes, and it's just a fun day to day. I watched my grandfather when I was growing up. I had two. One obviously worked at Beak Skiff, Marshall Skiff, and then my namesake Ed Brennan was the CEO of Sears in the 90s when Sears was the largest retailer in the world. And I watched him in his role, and I had an opportunity to walk through some stores with him, and I just saw the passion and the excitement he had for merchandising. And so I showed up here with no farm experience at all. And I made the mistake in the beginning of really trying to learn the farming side of the business. And I realized quickly that that was the last thing they needed me for. They needed me to come up with new ideas and bring that excitement. And so that's what I've always tried to do here, and then hire expertise where we need it. But today, with everything going on, we have a lot of people who want to work here. They want to participate in what we're doing, and our vision is a clear one, right? We want to keep the family business alive. We want to push it to the next generation. And I think that's something people can get behind. But if you've ever been up to Apple Hill on a Saturday or a Sunday morning in the middle of September, October, it's a pretty magical place. It's like the Disney World for all things Apple. And our job is just to get out of the way and make sure people are having a fun time.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, you guys have been around for 100+ years. There's another 100+ years for you as well. So I appreciate you talking a little bit about business. But I always like to end things a little more fun, a little more about you, just goofy, fun questions to wrap things up. So this it should be an easy one, since you guys are a concert venue and obviously you know some music. First concert, last concert, worst concert.
Oh, that's interesting. So my first concert ever, I went to a 311 concert in Hawaii when I lived there. That was an awesome show, and it's a band that I've always followed up until now, and I've always been trying to get them to come to the farm. I haven't pulled that off yet. What was the next one?
Last concert you've been to?
Last concert I've been to, Cole Swindell. So we had Cole Swindell here last Thursday night. He brought the house down, like so much energy and excitement, and it's always interesting to see like the customers, depending on the band who comes, but country artists and their fans, they come here in droves and they drink a lot and they love hard cider and they love their beer. And it was just fun to see people having a great night. But yeah, Cole brought the house down. Fun guy. It was great to see him.
And then the worst concert you've been to, like something that you're like, oh man, like this one's hard. Like I think there's some that I've been to some pretty small venues where you're like, man, there's no energy going on here.
Yeah. So I went to the band Counting Crows, who I love. There's so much great, but I think the lead singer was having a bad night or something was going on. Maybe he had a few behind the stage, but when he came out, he just it wasn't, I think the crowd was expecting more, and he was just kind of swaying on stage, and just the energy wasn't there. I mean, like stage presence and energy on stage is so important. And when it's lacking, it's very apparent. And we've seen it here on the farm a few times, but yeah, Counting Crows was one. That was probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, not a great one.
This one's always fun, and I'm going to it myself so I can look. I'm going to Google and seeing what the last thing I Googled was. Okay, why did men wear wigs in the 1700s? We were watching awesome. Like an old, drama piece, and like, why do the British guys always wearing wigs? So that was what I last Googled. What was the last thing that you've Googled, and why was it?
That's funny. Well, the last thing I think I Googled was about buffaloes, like the animal buffaloes, and how aggressive are they? So like we share a border on our farm at the lowest end of the farm with the Onondaga Nation, which is a reservation, and they have a huge buffalo farm. And I go down there every week, and like I love to look at the buffalo, but it's just like a thin fence line. But on the news recently, I've seen like all these buffaloes like charging people in Yellowstone Park, and like people. Oh yeah, there was this video of this guy getting like bucked like 50 feet in the air by a buffalo, and it's really gnarly, and a kid getting charged by one. So I'm like, how aggressive are normally are buffaloes in captivity? So I was just trying to confirm that, because I don't know if I need to stand back a little more from my daily adventures down to the buffalo farm here at Beak Skiff. But that was my last Google.
And the last one, what's something that you own that you should have thrown away years ago, but you just refused to?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, on my desk here, I have a huge, I have a lot of turkey feathers. I'm a huge turkey hunter, and I love turkey hunting here at the farm. But it's actually, it's gotten to the point, noticeable to the point where people, when they walk in my office, they're like, why are there all these turkey feathers? You're like, do they have a purpose? So I should probably should remove some of them from my office. I don't know if I throw them away, but yeah, turkey hunting here at Beak Skiff is like a place I get away, something you do early in the morning, but it makes me appreciate the land here. But yeah, I should probably remove some of those.
Awesome. Well, Eddie, I appreciate getting to know you a little bit and talking business as well. So thanks so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.